Future Spitzer here. This is my third time doing this. I forgot to hit the record button. Kind of messing up, but here we go. Really cool stuff in this. UI and also engineering. So here we go.
Of course, one of the most anticipated new features is the new manufacturer-specific user interfaces for spacecraft currently in development. So now let's take a very first look at the improved style soon to make its way to the Aegis ships, and the new functionality that will be coming along with them. I hear we'll finally be able to know what direction we're going. I'm going this way.
The UI that you see on a movie like Iron Man or Avengers or whatever, that's designed to work for maybe 2 seconds on screen and to tie into the backstory. But when we're trying to translate that across, trying to hit that feeling, it is quite difficult because for the HUD, for example, there's something like 40 or 50 different pieces of information you've got to show. Functionality is our main thing, so we have to try and look at those movements and try to extract those elements but still apply them to the game UI. So where shall I start? Tell you what, I'll begin at the beginning. So we decided that the UI in the game is okay, but we really want to kind of up the quality bar on it.
Aegis Combat Assist activated.
We have a fairly comprehensive list of what we needed to be displayed on the HUD. What's there in game at the moment doesn't cover all of that.
There were 2 major pushes towards getting the Aegis style right. The first of those, we kind of focused on the look mainly. So there's a lot of design considerations. For example, we want to make sure that everything's got a decent amount of space. Legibility is a big thing. If you've got text in there, it needs to be big enough to see. We also try and make similar things look similar. So if you have a button, it needs to look like a button. Also, we want to avoid things like overlaps. You don't want things to be on top of each other. And in general, with the new HUD as well, what we're trying to do is keep the flight information on the left and save the right-hand side for kind of mode-specific stuff.
So during the design process for this phase, we took the opportunity to add in some much requested fan favourite features, such as having a compass, which will aid in navigation both in atmosphere and space, and between those 2 modes it's either relative to the planet or relative to the galactic plane, and a radar altimeter. So in game at the moment you do sort of have an altimeter, but it's only relative to the perfect Z0 height of the planet, so mountains aren't accounted for, whereas this will account for that.
That's cool. That's
With
good.
the design doc in hand, we went ahead and made our second push on the concepts. Once we have the general look of it sketched out, then it's on to making the visual target. So we'll get the artist to come up with the final artistic look of it. And once everybody's happy with that, then we kind of punt it back to the designers and say, okay, is this working for you? And quite often,
No.
to start with, the answer is, no, it's not. So what they're interested in is that, hey, maybe it looks nice, but they really want to get across all the gameplay information. So we might tweak around the positions of a few elements, but it's things like make sure the fonts are big enough, make sure that the bars are strong enough. Then we pass that back to the artist, and there's kind of this cycle goes on for a little while the designers kind of give their feedback, and the artist kind of tries to address it, and eventually we get somewhere where everybody's happy. I think what we've ended up with after all this kind of concept and design work is something that's quite unique for a game, because it's been very well designed, and it's also had a lot of time visually to try and get it looking good.
That's the entire thing of game design is like feedback. Games or the games that are created in a vacuum usually suck. Most of the time there's feedback that is given. Games that, like, this game is being created while we're playing it, which is amazing. They get pretty much unlimited feedback, probably too much feedback. He said, like, fan favorite, compass and altimeters and stuff like that. So like that, they're listening to what the players want, and that's the designer's job, is to listen and then understand, like, is that the response of the game that is supposed to be designed, right? Like, I like to design towards feelings, and am I invoking a certain feeling versus, like, a not, right? If I'm they will say, like, if I'm designing something that's supposed to like kind of piss off the player, right? Then that is a way, like, and if they respond to me and feedback that they're pissed off in a certain way, then that's a success. It's kind of, that's part of the game design, or if it's fun, right? If it looks good. And this whole process with the UI probably took like a month or so, just going back and forth to talking. Because one, it's getting to understand each other. Talking back and forth between two groups, like artists and designers, like, and then there's programmers, right? So artists and designers talk back and forth, and I mean everybody talks to each other, like in this triangle type thing. But a lot of times it's up to the designers to really be able to talk to the programmers and then also the artists. And with that, like that takes time, and not like they haven't worked together before, but really getting this flow down and getting this getting this the way that like the rhythm of like making these things is part of getting that language, that common language that they can talk. Because eventually you'll get to know each other well enough that you know what they're looking for. That happens with like the game that I'm making now, of which I've been working with them for a year, 2 years now. Like in the previous, I went to college with them, and they understand what I'm looking for a designer, and then I understand what they're saying when they're saying certain things. So it's just something to really think about, and then also it takes time for the tools to be made. One of the things that like I think the community doesn't talk about a lot is like the tools. The tools are the biggest thing, because they're creating the ability to create quickly in the future, right? We talk about the Planet Tech. The Planet Tech was created and also iterated through, so then therefore like they can create planets faster in the future, and that's one of the biggest like things about this design is like if it was a single player game and you can just go through, you can just hard code stuff. You can just put it in and say, okay, like this is going to be like this. I hard coded in XYZ. But like MMO, the thing is that it has to be able to grow, right? Like so, Planet Tech's huge. UI is huge. They're going to have countless ships, right? To come out, and then if they have a UI system that they already have, copy and paste, that makes it faster for their side, so then therefore it's faster coming out. So it's just interesting to hear them talk about the tools, and interesting to hear them talk about the interactions, but it's always just a back and forth and feedback. That's the entire process of game design, because designing in a vacuum, you'll make a bad game. Like Chris can say, I want all of this thing, or all of these things, and all of these things, and he's a good designer. He has a lot of great ideas, but until they're in the hands of players, they don't know if it sucks or not. Right? It could be bad. We don't know, and it's not a hit on Chris or anything of that. It's just like I can have all the information in my head and just be like, oh, it's going to be great, right? But then, that's just my outlook versus like, it's a crowdsourcing type thing of like, this entire thing looks good, so, or feels good and plays well. So that's just something to really think about.
So if we look at the final concept, we'll go over some of the features that are there now. If we start at the top, this is where all your warning messages are primarily, so these will cascade in, and much like the current version, they will be coloured to indicate severity. Directly underneath that is a new element dealing with your emissions or signatures, and sort of infrared cross-section and EM signature relative to the background, which is going to be very cool for stealth gameplay. And then we have sort of the main piece of the HUD, which is much wider than we currently have, and that has everything to do with your velocity, thrust capacity, your thrust
And I forgot to say it, but like one of the biggest parts of being a designer, also, especially UI design, is being able to like have random person, right, that's never played the game go and be able to sit in the cockpit and understand what's going on. That is one of the huge design things. Artists um, will artists will like just make things look great, but like it might not be where the design needs to be for information giving, um, especially in UI. Then also with then the designers go back and forth, and there's multiple people. There's probably 10, 20, 30 people like really talking about it. I don't know, but it's more, the more the merrier. But then the ultimate test is going to be when it becomes live in the or not P, but the live server, because then there's going to be feedback for the players. And then I think like they're talking about like this is kind of finalized. I think they're going to go back eventually and just change some stuff because of the feedback they're getting. Because that's just what game design is about. Like I said, it's just about the feedback, and it looks great. Like it looks really cool. Looks really slick. It's weird to kind of see, the hydrogen fuel over here, and like the hydrogen fuel and quantum fuel, and then like I'm not sure what this stuff is. I think this is throttle. This is altitude. This is speed. But or velocity. He's all that stuff. But like it's and then this looks like the compass. But it's like I have to really get in the game and like really play with it to really understand it. Like just looking at it and dry, like you're not gonna really get it. But it looks freaking sick though. So
Amount, your fuel amount, your vertical bearings, and then your altitude above the ground. Underneath there we have two little spherical widgets, which is sort of your 3D velocity indicator, because quite often in space where you're pointing is not where you are actually heading, so these will give you some visual indication of that in 3D. And then right at the very bottom we have your sort of status warning, so whether you're in coupled or decoupled, whether ESP is on, whether you're in VTOL mode, your landing gear, your countermeasure status, and then finally bottom right is what sort of weapon firing mode you're in, whether it's auto gimbals here, manual gimbals, or fixed.
So in the background, while the visual development's been continuing, we've been working on the building block stuff, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about.
Building blocks are the tools, right? So it's like the tools of the game, so you can actually or tools of making the UI. So now it's going to be quicker.
One of the key things we've done recently is this system where we can layer the UI, so we can have like layers of flat UI, which lets us achieve this sort of three-dimensional holographic look. And then we'll be handing all that stuff over to the vehicle feature team so they can actually start to implement it. So the next steps at the moment, we're just finalising what the MFDs are going to look like, and as you probably know, there's loads of other manufacturers in the game. So potentially we'll work on something like RSI or Anvil or Drake next. So it goes through the same process. But because we've done the first one already, that process should be a lot quicker now. And as we get through more, we'll get into a good flow.
My thought is like they're gonna prioritize for Squadron 42 stuff, like whatever the ships are. From my understanding, there's the Gladius in Squadron 42. I don't know that much about it yet. I'm still kind of going back through the backlogs of stuff. Actually, I haven't really started, but whatever. But so yeah, Squadron 42. So whatever's in Squadron 42, that's what they're gonna hit first, because they're trying to get Squadron 42 out. I heard Anvil is in the game, so probably Anvil is gonna be next, but we'll see. What else? Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, just getting in the flow and like understanding each other and like understanding the tools to make them quicker at it. Hey, Future Spencer here. I decided to break this video up into two parts because of the feedback that I got earlier. My first video was very long, so I want to break this up into smaller chunks. Hopefully people like that format better. I really enjoy these. I like talking about game design. I like doing game design, and kind of giving some insight into what happens. More videos coming, and just thanks for watching. And I appreciate it. And I'm loving Star Citizen. The community is amazing. So yeah, thanks for watching. Check out the engineering video on one of these thingies. They'll be uploaded at the same time, pretty much. And have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.